sprint car world is full of great people. Matter of fact, I think I started last week's podcast with Brad Doty with the same phrase. I may very well have, and we're going to talk to another great person here today on the podcast, Tim Clauson. I know, he's one of those midget guys. He loves those midget cars. Well, now he's a wing sprint car owner as well, and we're going to hang out and talk a little bit with Tim Clauson on a whole bunch of things. It's like when you get ready to talk to Tim Clauson, it's like I don't know that you need notes because you just can go in so many different directions and you never know what you're going to get. So it is cool, and there's nobody better on the planet to talk to Tim Clauson with than my co-host here, Allison McKinney. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Yeah, Aaron is out doing SRX. You're out doing SRX next, right after this. Ashley is doing, everyone is all over the map.
Yep, absolutely.
And so
we keep meeting each other at different racetracks.
It's crazy, isn't it? It really is. So it is good. Tim Clauson, when did you first meet him?
I actually knew Brian before I knew Tim.
Okay, yep.
And, obviously I followed Brian's career on the USAC side of things and as he was coming up. And then when I was here, my very first job on the NASCAR side of things after college was at Ganassi Racing. And
that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of used the that nationwide Xfinity Bush program, whatever you want to call it. They used that program as like a driver development. And so the first few drivers, it was Reed Sorensen, Kevin Hamlin, and then it ended up, then Brian came in, and then Dario. And just to think about some of those guys from that time. Brian Patty was the crew chief at one point. So, but I got to know Brian a little bit then. And then that's right around the time that he decided that he really wanted to go back to Indiana and focus on open wheel again. And my husband was at Roush Racing. He came home one day and he said, Ford and Jack just hired this kid and they want to know if I want to be his ARCA crew chief. His name's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Or Ricky Stenhouse, actually, and is what Ryan said. And I said, actually, his name's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Yeah, he said, how do you know that? And I said, because my dad raced with his dad a little bit at West Memphis.
And there's only one Rick. There's only one Rick, senior.
Big Rick.
Big Rick, yeah.
So, but Ricky actually lived in Brian's house. Brian still had a house here, and so that's where Ricky lived. But pretty much everybody was gone that Ricky knew, so he ended up spending a lot of time with us. And when I actually really met Tim was my cousin Richard Marshall called me and said, Chili Bowl's always been one of my favorite events. Yeah. He said, I want to take my wife Jennifer to her first Chili Bowl and we want to have a dog in the fight. And he said, there's somebody that we can sponsor, somebody that you know of that needs some extra help. And I said, well, Ricky has a ride with the Clausons. They're going to run it regardless, but I'm sure they can use some extra help.
Sure.
And so I put Richard and Ricky together. They had met a couple times at the racetrack through me, but I put them together. It turned into Richard and Tim talking, and that first Chili Bowl, they just all clicked. Richard and Brian really clicked, and that was the beginnings of
what we know
both
now.
Clauson-Marshall Racing, but it also led to Stenhouse Jr. Marshall Racing on the World of Outlaws side. So Tim and Richard call me Ground Zero at times.
That's
so
neat.
On good nights, it's really good.
On good night, yeah, there we go. But boy, on bad nights, what
when
have you done to us?
When they both win, when the USAC team and the Outlaw team wins on the same night.
Yeah, gosh, that is neat stuff. Tim Clauson, a really great guy. So he is who we're going to talk to here today on Wing Nation, presented by Dryden, DRF Racing Oils. We're in the Hercules Star Studios. She is Allison McKinney. I'm Steve Post, and we're looking forward to that. Before we get to that, though, want to look back to last Friday night, the Flow Racing All-Star Circuit of Champions State Line Speedway up in New York State. Zeb Wise, Hunter Schoenberg mixing it up here. Here's our friend Blake Anderson with the call on Flow Racing.
And now for the Dryden death-defying move of the week, where one driver simply amazes us with their on-track moves.
Schoenberg closed the gap quickly, but Wise got on the hammer and pulled back away. Zeb Wise trying to get through lap traffic, and there's Hunter Schoenberg to the lead. Schoenberg threads the needle. Hunter Schoenberg to the top spot.
That death-defying move was brought to you by Dryden Diesel All Death, the official death of the World of Outlaws and wheelmen everywhere. Visit Dryden.com for more information.
For decades, Dryden Lubricants has been made in America and made to last, paving the way on our highways, in our fields, and on the production line. Today, Dryden offers a complete line of engine oils, greases, hydraulic and transmission fluids, and diesel exhaust fluid. If you want greater performance and protection for your critical engines and equipment, go to Dryden.com. Dryden, American owned and operated, and a proud supporter of racing and race fans everywhere. Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there no matter where the road takes you. Go to HerculesTires.com. There you can find the nearest authorized Hercules retail location to you. Plus, you can use the tire tracker to find out which Hercules tire fits your vehicle the best. That's HerculesTires.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength. Wing Nation, presented by Dryden, by DRF Racing Oils, continue on. We're in the Hercules Tire Studios. We're going to the Sage Fruit Outline, where joining us is Tim Clauson. Hello, Tim. Welcome back to Wing Nation.
Hey, glad to be here, guys.
Well, it is great to chat with you. And when I knew Allison was going to be my co-host, I said, well, this will be even better because we have one person that certainly knows the other person well. But, Tim, I almost hate to ask this question because you've got so many things going on. What are you working on here today?
Well, I'm actually, when we get done here, I'm going to head over to Attica and hope we dodge the rain for the Brad Doty Classic, and then from there head on over to Eldora for not one but two Kings Royals.
There you go. Sounds like a good time.
Yep.
We record this show on Tuesdays, and it's really, really neat, and it should be a fun weekend, that's for sure. Owning Sunshine's wing sprint car, what has that been like for you?
It's been really, really cool. My roots really from the driving side of it was wing sprint car racing in California, and so when we moved back here in the late '90s, of course USAC is king here in Indiana. So Brian and I kind of went the non-wing route, and later in his career he decided to take on the wing challenge. So when we decided to do this with Sunshine, it kind of brought me back a little bit to my days of driving, and then just to watch his progress and kind of going through the learning process again, and then really I got to live that with him, twice, through his non-wing stuff, through his midget stuff, and now to watch him as a professional tackle the non-wing side, it's really rewarding to watch that.
Well, and the thing that I think is so impressive with what you've done is your ability to put people together, to find that chemistry, and you've put together a really special team with those guys, with Jake and Luke and Balin, and so I think it's been kind of cool to see you shift to you're obviously still focused on the USAC stuff and that program, and you're so hands-on, but to see you kind of step back and do other things and kind of do some of those big picture things, I'm very curious as to what the next thing you're going to come up with for all of us to do, because you come up with these great big ideas, and then you exceed expectations. They happen quickly, and then you got to come up with new ideas. So do you have any new ideas for us that you want to share?
Well, I mean, it is nice. I've been very fortunate to be surrounded, by great people, and Richard and Jennifer and my wife Diana. We're all kind of partners in the whole Clauson-Marshall Racing, and that's probably one thing that Richard's always encouraged me to do is to always kind of think big and that, and but like with Jake and Luke and Balin, what those guys are doing, they're not an experienced, not one of them have experience running wing cars, and but with that they're racers, and and I felt that with Sunshine and then when Jake come on board, that we had two guys that were going to work super hard to make each other successful. And then with that comes the team, and and Luke and Balin, they support that so good. And Balin's a kid who wrote me 2 years ago wanting to just come job shadow for a school project, and and we haven't been able to get rid of him. And I'm very thankful for that, because he's going to be a kid that in the sport is going to make a lot of noise. And but with having good people, it's it has allowed me to kind of to do things that I normally wouldn't do. With being able to do that day with Jeff at IMS, and that's something probably 2 years ago I wouldn't even try to tackle. But the guys that we have in the shop to support everything allows me to kind of go do those things. Obviously, getting to do the SRX deal with Ray and Ryan and that group, again, that would have been something that, while I would have been honored and humbled to have been invited to do it, I just probably wouldn't have, knowing that I might be letting down, be it one team or the other. And but having these great guys that support and surround and are truly 100% invested like we all are, makes it easy to kind of go do some of that stuff that I think long term some of it is really good for the sport as a whole. I know it's good for our company and our brand, and so we actually are kind of working on a couple little things here that if they come to fruition could be pretty exciting for the near future.
How did the Jeff Gordon day at IMS all come together, and what was that like?
So you'll go back a few years, when Brian and I had our Chili Bowl team where we would, we'd run 2 or 3 cars. We each always kind of joked with each other. We had one get, right? Like and for Brian, it was always Donnie Schatz. If Donnie Schatz ever wants to run Chili Bowl, I want it to be for us. And jokingly, maybe not so jokingly, and I always said, well, Jeff Gordon's would be my get. And, Brian would fire himself for Donnie, and I'd fire Brian for Jeff. And then we'd all be okay with it, I think. And so, several years ago, I had asked Jeff if he'd be interested in running Chili Bowl, and he had always kind of had a reason why he wouldn't. And then he started coming to Chili Bowl, and so the conversation was, well, you're here, and why not? And but finally, last year at Chili Bowl, he said something to me that kind of struck, and he said, Tim, he goes, I would love to drive a midget again. I'd love to get back in one, but he goes, I don't necessarily want to race one. I don't, it's been 30 years, and so when we were looking for a way to promote the BC 39, the whole dirt track at IMS started with a kind of a fun day for Tony Stewart with some of his peers, and Doug went and carved out a track, and we just went out and really kind of had a play day in this this dirt area of Turn 3 at IMS, and I mean, to this day, it was probably one of the most incredible days I had at a racetrack, because it was a bunch of racers getting in cars, doing truly what they just loved to do, and that was drive cars as fast as they could with what they had to deal with. So when we started talking about what we could do for this year to promote the BC 39 through local media and stuff, I kind of had this idea of, what if we could get Jeff to come back and get in a midget, and then of course that parlayed into one to honor what him and Raleigh did, back in the 90s and winning the championship in Belleville and all that stuff. And so I reached out to Raleigh to make sure he would be okay with this. And then, of course, that turned into Raleigh. He still has that car, and can I bring it out, and we'll just make a day of it. And so we were able to do that. And Jeff was so gracious with his time, and honestly, as we kind of did it kind of took both of us back to when we were kids, at the quarter midget track in Rio Linda. And we walked in the trailer one time, and he kind of put his arm around me. He goes, Tim, I feel like I'm 10 years old again. And and I felt the same way. It was surreal. Everybody was so relaxed, and just. We told a lot of stories about the old days, and Raleigh shared so much of what him and Jeff shared together as Jeff was making his way, that honestly, if I were to list, all the special moments I've had in the sport, that one would rank right up there.
So, and then you got in one too, and so did Doug Bowles. Did y'all get out there on the track together?
No, we kept it separated. So we did Jeff's car to honor, the car that he ran with Raleigh in the 90s. And then we also brought out one of the Driven to Save Lives cars, and that's the car that Doug and I got into. So Doug went out first, and I don't really think he got a true fair shake at it because we swapped water truck drivers, and our second water truck driver was a little more aggressive with the water. I think he had been listening to Jeff saying, I want it wet. And so when Doug went out, his track was pretty greasy and slimy, and he worked it in. And then, something that Brian and I used to do when we'd go test some of the young kids that we would, bring up, and or even like when we went and tested Donnie and Zeb Wise and those guys, Brian always thought it was important that I go make the last run of the day. And part of it, he was always trying to talk me into running Chili Bowl. But he was also like, hey, when you get in it, these kids understand that you do, know what you're doing behind the wheel a little bit. So I hadn't been in one for quite a while. But really what I wanted to do more than anything is I had a pair of gloves that Brian had worn the day that we did that event 5 years ago that kind of started this whole thing. So it became pretty important to me that if I was going to do this, that those gloves make laps on what many would say he inspired. And so we got to do that. And then after we were all said and done, I got to give those gloves to Doug because I know that's where Brian would want him to go. And so it just made for a perfect ending to a perfect day.
Wow. I had not, I'd heard probably the rest of it or details of the rest of it, not to the length, but the glove thing I hadn't heard. That is absolutely amazing. Tim, one of the things Alice and I spent some time on our podcast talking about earlier this week, we were talking about the connection between the big time racing world and the dirt track racing world. And when I hear you talking about Doug and Indianapolis Motor Speedway and knowing the BC 39 is coming on, it is really neat to have such a passionate racer at the helm of the most historic big track on the planet. That has got to be a really, really neat connection to help you guys really market, promote, and just pull off what's going to be a great event coming up again with the BC 39.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, without Doug there, it doesn't happen. Without Doug being there after we ran the first one, I'm not convinced that it continues on. Doug is Doug's a fan of not just the dirt track at IMS or the BC 39. I mean, he is a true fan of short track racing. And it really of all racing, but we get to see it a lot in Indiana because he'll come to the Putnamvilles, the Bloomingtons, the Kokomos. And for midget weeks or sprint car shows, it really doesn't matter. I truly don't know how he does it with everything that he does at the Speedway, but, we'll be at a race and here comes Doug and he's popping in to see what's going on and then heads up and, grab some popcorn and watches the racing for a night. I mean, he truly is a fan, and to have, somebody like Doug, in a position to help influence not only, the BC 39, but again, all of short track racing is incredible. Doug was a big push also when we did the Indy 500 in 2019. His encouragement and, some of the things that he was able to point us in the right direction to get answers on was a pivotal part of us being there. And, in 2020, we were trying to work on bringing a short track guy there, and then Doug was even a bigger influence on that, trying to help us make that happen. And so Doug is a friend to all short track racing and racing in general.
Well, and I know that your idea when y'all talked about doing the Indy 500 and why you were doing it, that the whole idea, just like Steve was talking about, the connection between the dirt track world and bringing a dirt track guy or girl driver to Indy. So it was dirt to bricks. So, and I just thought that was just such a simple way to describe what your whole program is about, and just, continuing to invest in that grassroots racing and just to bring it to a bigger stage. And so just while you were talking, they're trying to make me cry over here, Tim, which you're good at. You're good at doing too. Tim is really good at pulling the heartstrings. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But they're showing video on the screen of the last BC 39 and just that race and how it played out, and having 3 Clauson-Marshall cars on the podium, and having Zeb win that race, and then Tyler, Tyler being second, and then Wyndham at the time. I mean, it was the most incredible night. So what are your feelings going into this year? How in the world are you going to top that?
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know if anything will top, that night. Zeb was the kid. Sorry. You talk about making somebody cry. Zeb was the kid that Brian picked. He was the one that when we left Lawrenceburg Speedway, and Zeb had come to, just to hang out and learn. And I think at the time he was, 13, maybe just 14 years old. And and I remember, I'll never forget, we had won that night, and Brian was heading to, I think, probably Eldora for King's Royal Week. And I remember him getting about 100 yards away, and he kind of turned around, and normally that meant he forgot something, which usually then was a text or a phone call to, hey, can you grab my wallet and bring it out to me? So I tried to ignore him, and here he comes back, and he kind of pulled me aside and put his arm around me, and he pointed at Zeb, and he said, that's the kid that we need, in a driver development program. And, so to go and Tyler, obviously, he grew up in our shop, from the time he was 14, 15 years old, and was part of, Brian's, 2 midget championships with us as a crew guy. And, so here it hit Brian's race at the biggest place in the world. We'd just come off that pursuit race that put all eyes on the next night, right? Mm-hmm. And here those 2 kids run 1-2. It was, definitely a special night.
It's ironic to me, and Allison and I also talked about this, that now Tyler's running with the All-Stars, Zeb is running with the All-Stars. We have a video clip from our move of the week, which is Hunter Schurenberg running with the All-Stars. It's like now you have these kids, even though you moved to something else, you can't get rid of them. And that's got to be just very heartwarming to know who you're racing against like that.
Oh, it is, and Hunter, Hunter's another kid who we, when he first moved here to Indiana, we got to do a little bit of midget racing with him, and, actually ran him in a pavement car one night at Anderson, and didn't go so well. And, so maybe that helped steer his career towards the wing cars. But, I'm reaching a point in my life, career in the sport, that I get to look back and reflect a little bit. And it's kind of interesting because, there was a time where, if we didn't win, I really didn't care, right? And I think, as a racer, that's a big part of it. And, but now, Hunter picked up his first All-Star win, Friday night at State Line. And I truly had excitement for him. When Zeb beat us at the Rudine race, while I wish, it was a different purse structure that night, but, there was still some, I was happy for him, and there was a little bit of sense of accomplishment, I think, from all of us. And when I got to Tyler in the car, the first thing he said was, well, at least it was one of our guys. And so, as we continue to look across the racing landscape, to know that, maybe in a lot of these kids and racers' lives, we've had a little bit of an influence, with them coming up through. It's kind of cool now to sit back and be able to take a little bit of pride in that.
As you should.
Well, and Taylor and I were working on the website last year, and one of the coolest things I think on the Clauson-Marshall website is the list of drivers who have driven a Clauson-Marshall car, and just to look at those names that are on that list, I just feel like it's an incredible accomplishment, and it just makes me really proud of everything that you've all accomplished, and makes me proud of like a little piece that I've had in it.
It's a
So
tremendous accomplishment. It really, truly is. And so, Tim, we've talked about all of this wide-ranging things from wing sprint cars to Jeff Gordon to the All-Stars to the BC-39. And I tuned on CBS a couple of weeks ago, and there you are as guest crew chief for SRX. How in the wide world of sports, A, did you carve the time out for that, and what was that experience like?
Well, I was able to carve the time out, because of the group of people we have at CMR and, the encouragement from, again, Richard and Jennifer and my wife to, hey, these are the things you're going to regret if you don't go do. And so with their encouragement, I went to do it. I'm normally not the guy who wants to, be in front of a camera or that. And of course, knowing it's going to be on CBS was hard. And but Ryan and Ray especially, when Ray called me about IRP or LOR or whatever they're calling it now,
Yeah,
it's always IRP.
I kind of half chuckled, and I'm like, Ray, why not Eldora? Have you not been paying attention? We win a lot at Eldora, and they give me Tyler Courtney at Eldora, but Ray said, no, you're from Indy, and Ray's thought was that you have ran at IRP, and we did with our USAC midget team back in the day, and he said, but more than that, there's a bigger story to be told, and he didn't really elaborate on that, but I kind of knew what it meant.
yeah.
And then, the week of, we get to, have Driven to Save Lives on Tony Kanaan's car, which was a complete, shock to all of us. And so it was right. It was the right place to go do it at. And Tony was so gracious on, not only getting to carry that on his car, but, he made sure to come over and tell me his Brian story, which was really cool. And then he made sure that, Taylor and the kids and, that everybody got to spend a little bit of time with him in that car. And so it was, from that aspect, it was the perfect night. The racer in me wishes I could go back and do it one more time, because I feel like we learned a lot. Or I learned a lot. Not, my guys were the most, I think we probably were picked to go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2 for sure. And, I was able to lobby him to a 5, 6, 7. But those guys, Tony and Bobby Santos, who I had I've had a relationship with both of them over the years. And then Michael Waltrip, again, they were also gracious and helping. They could probably tell I was a little bit uncomfortable, but they did such a great job of making sure I felt like at least I knew what I was doing, sounded like I knew what I was doing. And it was just a wonderful experience.
So you mentioned Taylor. I don't know if you know this, but she and I got into pretty much an argument about, I said, so I'll see you this weekend. And she was like, well, no, I'm not coming to the SRX race. I got to go to Putnamville. And I was like, what? I said, your dad is going to be live on CBS crew chiefing this race on Saturday, and you're going to be the second night of Putnamville for USAC sprints. I was like, Taylor, we got to do something about this. And so then it led to, eventually it all worked out, like most things do seem to happen when Clauson-Marshall is involved in some way, and it worked out. And she sent me a text message and she goes, okay, I'll be there on Saturday. And then I was like, but wait, there's more to this, because you just told me how you had to activate and do your Driven to Save Lives display at Putnamville. And I said, isn't one night at Putnamville enough? Come to SRX on Saturday. And it worked out that it led to, being able to spread the word to the great fans that were there for that SRX race and all the stuff that you mentioned with Tony. So again, it all worked out the way that it's supposed to. But I do have one question for you about the beginning of the season. Before this year started, I know one thing that's been talked about is with Clauson-Marshall, y'all always have lofty goals. Whatever new challenge that you're taking on, y'all always set a plan, and you have a history now of exceeding that plan and having to move those plans up. But at the beginning of this season, what would you have considered to be successful when it comes to Tyler and and moving that team full time over to the All-Stars? what would you have been, really happy with at the beginning of the year?
Well, I'm usually what some would call the pessimist of the group, or
the realist.
I say more the realist of the group, and but when we do, we sit down at the beginning of each year, and we do set goals, and that is something that Richard has really brought to us, and and we try to take ownership of that. So when we did sit down at the beginning of the year, I think by the end we were all done kind of laying it out, and we really thought, if we could win 3 times and be in the top 3 in points, that was a realistic goal for our first full year of wing racing, running a traveling series, the obstacles that come up in that, managing motor programs, parts, everything that just goes with it. I felt there would be some stumbles here and there, and so that was kind of the goal. If we could land in the top 3 in points, would be a very successful year.
So far, so good.
Yeah, no. Well, it's interesting. I kind of joke with Sunshine, and the first race he ran for CMR in the midget, he won. It was the Nepper Memorial in Du Quoin, and and then he kind of tricked us into putting that sprint car deal together for 2018, and we go to Ocala, and I don't think we won the first night. We may have, but I know we won 2 of the 3. And when we put this wing deal together, we went over and ran our first night and won with it. And so I joked with him. I said, doing an Indy 500 program him would really be pretty easy if he could guarantee me the results he always has for a first-time effort. So, but no, Tyler and I have got to do a lot of really cool things, and to watch him really grow into this championship caliber driver in really no matter what he gets in. Now he understands what it takes. He knows when to take risks, when not to take risks, how to manage. There's probably nobody better at managing a bad night for us. He always seems to bring his shovel and dig us all out of the hole. And so to watch that from this 14-year-old kid that showed up at my shop, just wanting to be a race car driver, is pretty cool.
Well, and I think that is something that I think is so special. That's part of that story. That I think that we need to keep reminding people is that it's easy to look at Tyler now and to see how polished and how put together he is, and just what a great athlete that he is for NOS and spokesperson for our company and all of those things. But the thing is, Sunshine wasn't always sunshine, and the way I say that, and that I explain to some of those younger guys, especially some of the guys that we get to work with around Chili Bowl time and things like that, is that I feel like Tyler has always, made the most of his opportunities and has grown and taken it in. But it's such a huge testament to the group of people that he is lucky enough to be surrounded with and to have grown with. So many young drivers find some success and maybe move on. But I think it's lucky on both sides, or a blessing on both sides, that how much y'all have grown together, the company and Tyler. So, but I know Jennifer likes to remind him that you put that picture of his first win next to the picture of one of the most recent wins, and then you show somebody. I think I showed Chance Crum that at Chili Bowl this year, where he was just a little bit. He was excited, but a little bit overwhelmed, and I said, just take it all in this week, learn everything that you can, watch what Tyler does, watch how he handles himself, both on his race night and throughout the week. I was like, we have fun. We're a family. We really stick up for each other, but learn all that you can. And I showed him a picture, and he goes, wait, is that his twin brother? And I said, no, that's not Moonshine. That's Tyler. So it's just, it's a testament to what y'all have done for sure.
Well, and I think it really goes back to that first summer with us. He showed up, and I want to be a race car driver, and his dad Tony was there, and And I said, well, that's easy, you know. And I looked at Tony. I go, write a check, and you could see Tyler slumped down in his chair, right? Because they're just racers, right? They just want to go racing, and there's only one way for them to do it is work. And so I had told Sunshine, or Tyler at the time, he wasn't Sunshine yet, and I said, Tyler, I go, we're putting together this little USAC team, and I really can't afford to pay anybody, but I'll tell you what I'll do is if you want to come help us. And you work your tail off this summer, we'll see what we can do about putting you in a car at the end of the year. And so he did. He put everything he had into it. So we built him a car, took him to the Kokomo class to really go just run him in a race. Our goal was to run him at Chili Bowl. And at this point, Brian, he's like a little brother to Brian at this point. So we build him this car, and it's, really nice piece. And I tell him, let's just go up there under the radar. Well, they have, 300 friends and family with him. He goes out. They give him the green for hot laps. He rolls it into one. He doesn't even make the corner and gets upside down. And it was, a dumb flip that just kind of just tipped over, but the way it landed, it destroyed everything.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, as he was walking out the gate in turn one, I was walking on the track in turn 3, and I watched him turn the corner with this parade of people behind him. And got back to the trailer, and he asked, do you mind if I just go home? And I said, no, I don't, buddy. And I told Brian that night, I said, I don't think we'll ever see Tyler again. And it was one of those, those moments. It's one thing to go do something like that under the cover of darkness and only me, him, and Brian know about it. But the whole world knew about it. And, but the next morning, when we pulled into the shop, Tyler was sitting on the stoop just waiting for us. And I, got out. I said, what are you doing here, buddy? And he said, and at this point I'm Tim to him, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, Mr. Clauson, if I can tear your stuff up, I can be here to help you tear it down. And I tell that story to every kid that comes and races with it, because it wasn't the fact at the time, Sunshine was not this superstar race car driver, right? He's just a kid trying to make it. And his first opportunity, he blew it. But what he did in reaction to that stays with me daily. And sadly, every kid needs to live up to that for me now, right? You got to be there in the worst moment of your racing career if you want not only me, but this group of people to stand behind you. It's easy when everything's easy. It's not easy when it gets hard. And if we're all gonna, do everything we can to help you find success, then you've got to be able to dig in. And Sunshine did that. And it wasn't 2 weeks later that Brian's coming to me saying, hey, we need to figure out a way to put a Chili Bowl car together for him. and we figured it out. And he goes down there, and he's rookie of the year down there. And then that kind of helped parlay to what his next step was. The other thing that Sunshine did is, when he left us to go strike out on his own, it's the second thing I tell her, that there's no reason to burn bridges, right?
Yeah.
And Sunshine stayed a friend to us, and Brian helped him and mentored him, and, we'd get tires and we'd help him out. But I'd always hoped that at some point we'd get back together and go racing again. And here we are. And, so, he was smart enough, and I think it's not smart enough. It's the way he was brought up by his mom and dad. He wasn't going to burn that bridge, and fortunately was there to cross back over, and here we are all these years later.
Beautiful story. That is for sure a beautiful story. August 18th and 19th, it's the Driven to Save Lives BC 39. Tim, how's everything looking for it? How can people get tickets? What do we need to do to make this thing blow up? Well, it's already going to be off the charts. What do we need to do so fans can be part of this?
Yeah, go to the IndianapolisMotorspeedway.com. You can get tickets there for both Wednesday night and Thursday night. I know they're working on the draft party for Tuesday. One of the cool things that I think is starting to happen now is we're starting to build some assets around the race, right? Like we have the draft on Tuesday night, which is followed by a little bit of a draft party type atmosphere. We are actually, today's champions is bringing back the Racers for the Autism event that Brian and Lauren had started at Chili Bowl. And so we're actually going to have that Tuesday night after the draft on Speedway on Main Street. And so all that information's coming out now. And so we're starting to see this thing turn into, what I hope will be a destination for a week for people that, want to come to a great event, on vacation and things like that. So we're starting to see all those puzzle pieces get put together now too.
It'll be fun, that is for sure. Tim, we appreciate the time. Love getting a chance to hear some of the stories and the conversation. We appreciate you joining us here this week on Wing Nation.
Oh, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. And Steve and Allison, looking forward to seeing you guys. Steve, you're coming to Eldora, right?
Yeah, I'll be up there.
I see that. Perfect. I look forward to seeing you there, buddy.
If I wasn't in Nashville, I would be there.
There we go. See that? You gotta be in
I got my NOS charger. I got 2 of them already charged up so that I can, while at the SRX finale in Nashville, I can be watching sprint cars on my phone.
There we go. That'll be great.
There we go. Perfect.
Thanks again, Tim.
All right. Thanks, guys.
There we go. That's Tim Clauson joining us here on Wing Nation. Over the years, Dryden has stood for uncompromised value and proven performance. Known as the hardest working brand in heavy-duty lubrication, Dryden's heritage is made in America and made to last. Dryden products work to increase the life and enhance the efficiency of your equipment in the toughest conditions. Learn more about Dryden's products at Dryden.com. From grassroots racing to NASCAR, Dryden is a proud supporter of racing everywhere. For a year-round high-quality eating experience, look no further than Sage Fruit apples, pears, and cherries. Not only is their produce healthy, but they are grown with such care and precision that you can count on each piece of fruit having exceptional flavor. Sage Fruit, it's our first choice for quick and easy snacking. Flow Racing is the home of grassroots racing, with over 1,300 races streaming live in 2021. Watch the Lucas Oil Chili Bowl, World 100, Dirt Late Model Dreams, Sweet 16, and much, much more. Subscribe today by going to flowracing.com/MRN. From sprint cars on dirt to SK Modifieds on pavement, arena cross, drag racing, and everything in between, it's here live and on demand. Subscribe today by going to flowracing.com/MRN. That's FLOracing.com/MRN. Wing Nation, presented by Dryden by DRF Racing Oil, continues on. One of the places we love to talk about. I spent a little time at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum this past weekend, Saturday morning out there. Birthdays, Sam Hanks would have been on Tuesday. Today, Elmer George, Charlie Wiggins, Wally Campbell. Tomorrow, Leland McSpadden. And today is the birthday of 2006 inductee into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, Ricky Hood. What a character that is.
Oh,
a great guy.
Well, I mean, when you're Hooker Hood's son,
you don't
have any choice not to be a character, but yep.
We went to there used to be a little open wheel museum in Phoenix. Tyler Bernetti used to work here. He's on, he does flow racing stuff now.
Yeah.
Tyler and I went out there and we walk in and Tyler and I look and say, that's Ricky Hood. And we were out there. We ended up doing a sit-down interview with Ricky Hood.
Oh, wow.
And then we ended up drinking beer for quite a amount of time after that and got a lot of great Ricky Hood and Hooker Hood stories.
Wow.
Great guy, that's for sure.
My family spent a lot of time with him. In fact, my parents are still really close to his mom, to Carolyn, and his sisters, Misty and Stormy. So they all still live near West Memphis.
Yeah, I'm going there next week. I'm going to West Memphis next week. I'm looking forward to it. But anyhow, he ran a true outlaw schedule. He got his first USAC win in 1981. In 1984, he was the USAC champion. The end of that season, I guess I heard about this, involved in a pit accident at the end of the year they thought I forget, he just got hit by a car in the pits. And everyone was shocked in 1985 when he showed up at the racetrack ready to race again. And he went to Manzanita and won. Silver Crown success and ultimately more than 400 sprint car wins. He
incredible.
is enshrined. I know, it's incredible. Enshrined at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum. You can go to our Facebook page, our Facebook group page, and I have a Tales from the Road of the Greg Hodnett display. Woo, man, as a guy that knew Greg Hodnett somewhat, speaking of a Memphis connection there, that display is well done.
Absolutely.
I mean, I did the video and I walked around and then I had to step outside and think a little bit.
So
when I say think, I mean think with some tears rolling down my eyes. The Hall of Fame, their sprint car, their tribute to sprint car champion Greg Hodnett was unreal.
Aaron and I went through there when we were there for the SRX race, and the Sprint Car Hall of Fame always seems to outdo themselves, so I think that's what's so great about it is that people need to know that you need to go there, every year because they always have something else that they that they bring in.
Saturday morning, a lady came up to me and she says, I live 2 blocks from here. She says, I come over here 4 or 5 times a year and I see so many new things every time I walk in. Things that maybe are new or things that I've missed. And she says, this is just a beautiful spot. It really, truly is. SprintCarHof.com. That's SprintCarHof.com. Upcoming schedule, we'll roll through this rather quickly here. The Kings Royal, it is ongoing ×2. Tonight, $175,000. Tomorrow night, the night before the Royal. Saturday night, $175,000. One of the big ones on the West Coast, the King of the West Series, the Howard Kading Classic at Ocean Speedway, Friday night 360s. Saturday, King of the West NARC 410s. I did this one a couple years ago. They ain't scared to race out there. They ain't scared to drink a beer out there, and they ain't scared to eat. They have one of their partners makes those brick oven pizzas right there at the racetrack. He brings the oven out with him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's so much good racing right now that it's a great time of year.
Pizzas, cold beer, and talking California sprint car racing at Ocean Speedway. I'm telling you, in Watsonville, good stuff. ASCS National Tours at US 36 Raceway. That's a co-sanctioned race with the Warrior region. Our friends at Jackson have a big 360 night on Friday night, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday racing all over the planet. If you can't find a sprint car race, you are just not looking. That is for sure. So great stuff. Great hanging out this week. Appreciate you filling in. I think.
Thanks for having me.
I think. Are you on next week too?
No, next week I can't make it. But
okay.
no.
I know we're.
But hopefully you'll have me back again sometime.
Well, we will for sure. We certainly will. That's for sure. Because I know Aaron's out again next week. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So Wing Nation gear and apparel is available at www.wingnation.com. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on our YouTube page. And coming up this weekend, talking about the Howard Kading Classic, Bud Kading joins us on our Wing Nation television program on Rev in Canada and on MAV TV. So, hey, we appreciate Tim Clauson joining us here, but more important than all of that, thank you for joining us here on Wing Nation, presented by Dryden and DRF Racing Oils.